recording yet?
I'm recording now. Go.
Okay. So hi everyone. We're doing the presentation for the project Falling Knife. My name is Ramos, and the teammates are Wenchi, Chitali, and Chiyu. So just a little bit of overview of what is happening with the project. So the big topic is number one, we're trying to identify what is the falling knife, as well as the production goal, and also we're going to talk about what our challenges is. And for the project, we have set up two objective. The number one objective is to identify when the stock is going to fall and trying to find patterns. And then the second objective is to trying to predict the stock price movement after a falling knife. And following, we will have a conclusion of the project.
Oh, sorry.
So a little bit of just understanding what is a falling knife. So the term falling knife suggests that buying into a market with a lot of downdraw momentum can be very expensive, can be very dangerous, just like trying to catch an actual falling knife. One of the challenges that we met is trying to understand the quantitative data versus the qualitative data. We know that stock price movement are often affected by historical events, political events, and geographic events, so that the qualitative analysis is very out of the picture. And in this project, we're kind of just assuming that there isn't any anomalies in the market. And the second thing is we're trying to find out the different risk preference, just because for some trader, a 5% draw could be seen as a falling knife, and but also for other traders, a 7% draw can also be a falling knife. And we cannot really predict when the falling knife is going to happen, but we can definitely have a signal when it is happening. And then the things that is involved in the project, also we're implementing the dash for different users that I talk about with risk preference, and also involving stochastic processes, decision trees, and we're using Python and R as our primary coding language for the project. Wait, what's going on? We just go by order. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So now I'm gonna talk about the model I use in this project, and I'm using this HMM model. It's called Hidden Markov model, and this is a model. This is a statistical model in which system being model is assumed to be a Markov process with numerous unobserved states. So basically, in this model, it can apply machine learning to observe different status that you cannot see by your eyes. And this model is also using predicting the weather, and it can be applied in a lot of areas, especially in finance area. So I apply HMM to financial time series data to explore the underlying status that can be predicted by the model. And for this model, there's a few basic assumption. So you have to first put into some feature value for this model to train. Like it can learn the feature value and do the predicting. So I'm using these four feature value. So the first one is 5-day log return spread and 20 days, and 5-day volume growth rate and 20-day. And all of this feature value approximately normally distributed. So, and that is why I did it in a natural logarithm. And the third assumption is hidden status in stock market. I set these three status as our hidden status. One is head state, and two is rise, and finally is fall, because we are looking for a falling knife. And this is part of my code, but it's not big enough. So there's some of the function section in this code, and we can, through this code, we can get a result. So this is a result of Apple Inc. from 2018 to 2022, the latest 5 years data. So, and this is the stock price in the whole time period, like the one on the left. And the 3 charts in here is the status that our model aggregated. So in this one, we can see that this is absolutely hesitate because the price doesn't move a lot. And for this one, we can consider it as a fall because you can see that the price is like a falling knife, or the curve move downside. And this one is absolutely a rise. And we can see I also try it with stock price with Tesla. And this is go down, this is go up, and this is hesitating. And the result of Bitcoin, this is, no, the Bitcoin is not very obvious to see, because, and one of the most important things for this model is it can only show you the status, but how to define this status, what this status is, and what did it tell you, you have to define that by yourself. And yeah, so you have to see what is really going on in this status. And this is result of Ethereum, which is also a cryptocurrency. So we can see that this is going down, and this is going up, this is rise, and this is hesitating. Yeah, so that is basically my part.
Sorry. So right now I'm going to talk about the process of how to do the recovery. So a couple of things to consider is basically the correlation between individual stocks and the current general market, just because, as we know, during the pandemic period, even though the fundamental of a company can be doing really well, just due to the global events, people can panic sell, and the overall market, it does have a correlation with the individual stock. And we're mainly just looking at what is the current stock price and what is the historical stock price we're trying to close up, and also using the probability that you will talk about later on with Coppola. And we are also making an assumption that, just for our calculation and setting up the model, we're making an assumption that there are 30 trading days and there are 7 trading hours a day in a month. And then so to do this model, I have mainly used the Monte Carlo simulation to predict the date and the probability of it. And while that my technical work is focused on the project, I build a model based on a CRR model, and I set up the average growth. And when I use the U plus sigma, as you see in the equation, the price will go up. And then when the U minus sigma, the price is going to go down. And to determine whether or not the stock will how to act in a specific day, we will have to look at the general market performing. And that's why we're going to combine the S&P 500 movement and its historical price to the individual stock data that we have. And then when we're building a model, it is also easier to back and later on, here, as you see, this is my my formula set up. And basically the Milstein scheme is obtaining a result by using stochastic and Taylor expansion, and also with Ito formula. And so as here, my variable n is set of the hours to evaluate. So basically how long of a period you want to evaluate how the stock is going to move. And right here, I set n as 630 just because it's 3 months. And then T is the time in the trading months that's have a denomination of 12. So basically, this model will allow you to see a different time period. You can set it as 3/12, or you can set it as 6/12, which is half a year. And then the current stock price X0, just pretend to be $7. And then the historical stock price to recover is 9.99. And in the first part of your equation, you can already see that we're trying to cover $2.99 of a equation. And then we also have a sigma, which is the copula coefficient. So basically, just to understand a little bit more, if I'm splitting it from 0 to 1 at a 50% in the middle. So any stock that has a coefficient of 0.5 or above, the stock price will have a higher chance of growing. So if you have a very, very outperforming stock that is performing really well, very strong, and people are getting a lot of attention from the market, the stock is already making 3 or 4% of a movement. But if the S&P 500 is also correlating and moving a lot higher than the normal range, then we will probably have a correlation like 0.7 because the stock is performing well and then the market is performing well. But if the stock is performing well, but the market is not, the coefficient you might see is 0.55. This is all just example out of my head, but the copula will be discussed later on, and also just the simple process of how we make the correlation. So yeah, so on the left side is my code for the equation in R, and then on the right is one of the example that I just ran, the stock price from 7.0 all the way grew to around 7.7 in the 3 months of period, and while having the sigma of 0.56, which is just a little bit above the 0.5 threshold for the stock to grow. Yeah, okay.
I will talk about some analysis based on time and earnings series. Showing different graphs, the charts of consecutive gains and consecutive losses are similar, and the charts of consecutive growing times and losing times are similar. So there is a certain degree of consecutive growing times and losing time and the losses, but the regularity between time is not strong. Therefore, time and the benefits are started using different models. So I analyzed two factors individually. Firstly, this part focuses on the exploration of the sample data of the consecutive rising and falling time, including descriptive analysis, autocorrelation test, summarizing the characteristics of the continuous rising and falling time data, and finally comparing the regularity of the rising and falling time based on the survival model. So I'd like to show the relationship of time using descriptive analysis. Oh, sorry. Some analysis based on time and earning series. Showing different graphs, the charts of consecutive gains and consecutive losses are similar, and the charts of consecutive growing times and losing times are similar. So there is a certain degree of aggression in the consecutive gains and losses, but the regularity between time is not strong. Therefore, time and the benefits are studied using different models, and I'll analyze two factors individually. So firstly, the part focuses on the exploration of the sample data of the continuous rising and falling time, and including descriptive analysis, autocorrelation test, summarizing the characteristics of the continuous rising and falling time data, and finally comparing the regularity of the rising and falling time based on the survival model. So now we can see from the descriptive analysis graph, we can see in the past 10 years, the data show that the average value of the time series of continuous rising and falling is about 3.32 days. And the median standard deviation and the other data are close, and the kurtosis and the skewness of the continuous rising time is slightly higher than the consecutive decline time, which is in line with the market trend. And the standard deviations are lower than the mean, indicating that there is no over dispersion in time and the time series tends to be stationary. And then we can see from the autocorrelation graph shows that two series, the autocorrelation of the continuous rise and fall is weak. And the lag first order autocorrelation coefficient of the two series is not significant, indicating that the continuous rise time of the previous period is not closely related to the time of the next period. And what's more, under the larger lag order, there is a weak autocorrelation either in the times of consecutive ups and downs. And so later we can see the survival analysis. Hi, please turn to another PowerPoint. And the contemporaneous correlation between the consecutive gains and losses is very small, and there is no significant effect between the two. Therefore, the survival analysis method is used to explore the regularity of the duration of ups and downs. And also, the estimates of the two functions basically overlap, and the probability that the continuous rise and fall time is greater than the given number of minutes is very close. So the average of the continuous rise and fall days is about 3 days. According to this ideal state of the circle, the continuous state of 3 days may be used as an investment signal. And then we can see from our hazardous rate. So the hazardous rate is risk analysis is next than 0.5. Please change to another point. Thank you so much. Of consecutive gains and losses and consecutive declines. At the same time, comparing the marginal distribution model also shows that the correlation between large fluctuations is relatively strong. So that's all about the analysis of the prices and times. So maybe for the future research, we could add some proper estimation of risk measures in both high dimensional and high frequency data, because now I just using the no frequency data. And so based on same analysis used before, maybe we can find some changes in autocorrelation and the new models in distribution. Thank you. That's this part.
Thank you, Chiu. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so the goal of my part of the project was to try and predict the stock prices or the falling knives using machine learning. I used around 3 models to figure out which one works the best. I initially started with decision trees to help predict the stock prices. I moved on to random forest regressor, and the last model that worked on was LSTm, which is a form of artificial neural network. And out of the decision trees, random forest and artificial neural networks, I thought that the neural networks model was the one that kind of helped me with the best results, with a higher accuracy of almost 85%. That's when I stuck to the LSTm model and incorporated it in the presentation. So what is an artificial neural network? An artificial neural network is an algorithm which kind of is trained in a way a human brain, a human neuron works. It's given with a set of input data. It has a few hidden layers which are assigned different weights depending on the different inputs. It has an activation function, for example. It can have ReLU as an activation function. It also has a loss function. In this case, we've used the mean squared error as a loss function, and the optimizer that we've used is Adam. And the set of all of these kind of helps you come out with an output. I will talk briefly about what an LSTm model is. Can we go to the next slide? And the next slide. Okay, so I use LSTm model to predict so for what I worked on was I took the last 5 year stock price, the historical stock price data for Tesla. I then tried to use LSTm to predict the price for Tesla in the next 100 days. What we could do is, and I did the same thing using both distant trees and random forest. What can be done is you can use any stock and just kind of plug in the required data in the algorithm and can have the results, because Tesla has shown really has had a variety of ups and downs over the past 5 years. I stuck to Tesla. Moving on to the next slide. I'll just give a very brief about whether neural networks are, oh no, just a slide before this. It's called long shot. So I'll just give a very brief about what the model that I've used is. LSTm stands for long short-term memory units. It's a type of a recurrent neural network capable of learning order dependencies, and it's excellent for predictions if imputed with a good set of historical data. As we said, it's a type of recurrent neural network. What is a recurrent neural network? It's that once the output of the network is produced, the output is copied and returned as an input. So all of the outputs kind of get in a sequential manner, are turned in as an input, and that's how the output again in a sequential manner is produced. LSTMs are preferred more as they can, store in large sets of historical data as against the LSTM, as against RNNs. They have 3 gates. They have an input gate, a forget gate, and an output gate. So it's a model. Since again, it's as I earlier spoke about the model, the framework of an ANN. It's very similar to that, just a little improvised version. The forecasting accuracy of LSTM model is high as 85%. Whether neural networks are good enough to predict stock prices, to a certain extent they are. With good sufficient data, they can definitely train the model well and help predict the stock prices. They help explore non-linear and really complex relationships, so that's a great thing. However, when it comes to very volatile situations like the COVID situation that happened or is happening in the past 2 years, that kind of uncertainty is not really accounted in neural networks. Also, we have a problem of overfitting. I remember when I used the neural network model, I used a lot of hidden layers, and that led to a very high accuracy for the model. So it can kind of trick you to believe that your model is really working well, but it's just a problem of overfitting. So you have to configure the number of layers, the neuron sizes, the activation function, and just see what is the one that suits your model really well. So that comes with a lot of trial and error. But overall, I think when compared to decision trees and random forest, I think neural networks as a model for predicting stock prices has been so far the best, with a very high accuracy level of as high as 85%. Thank you.
And that will conclude our presentation. Anyone have any questions?